Do you get a live button?
Yeah, you do get a live button. Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you might be in the world. I'm going live. The light should go out within the minute here. And I'm gone live just a minute early to truly discover where is Ian going on holiday.
Just a Butlins with the kids.
Oh,
Nothing
okay.
exciting.
Which Butlins? Minehead or further around? Or?
Yes.
Minehead. Hey, across the water.
Yes, not too far.
Yes.
Not too far.
Yeah, the main problem with Minehead Butlins is you can see whales on a clear day. That's the main problem with it.
Yeah, you can look across and there's this smear across the track.
No, it's very nice. I've been there. And my dad's on the is part of the railway that goes up to there as well. So yeah, I know that area quite well. Yeah, very nice. Quite a long drive from where it's
everywhere's a long drive from me, Gary. Everywhere's a long drive.
But it is all the way round and back. It's a long way. So, there we are. There go the lights. There we are. And now this broadcast is brought to you via Candle. What do we used to have before candles, Dad? We used to have electricity, son.
Why is it so bad over there, Gary? Why is it so bad at the minute for you over there at the minute?
Corruption, lack of maintenance, corruption, lack of vision, vested fossil fuel industry, people still trying to, Shell tried to come and prospect here off the coast, and thankfully the people got rid of Shell and their boats, and we're saying we're not having that anymore. But unfortunately, ministers in power are still holding onto it, which basically means we are having no power now for between 8 and 14 hours a day on a schedule. So that's okay. This is going to happen.
Is it mainly coal or gas burnt now?
Coal. It's coal. But now when they do this, they burn the gas turbines. There's a guest. Hang on my mobile, so it doesn't work as well. Guess it's him. Should I let him in? I'll let him in. Let him in. There we are. I've let him in. Hello there, Bruce.
G'day. How's it going? You're very dark.
No, I'm not. I'm just. I think I'm lit in a mood kind of a way.
This is just you're just showing off your new candelabra, aren't you?
well, welcome to the live stream, 1900 style.
Well, the interesting thing, I suppose, or one interesting thing, I don't know how the audio is on this. My phone does really well at this. Perhaps it does, I don't know. Is that for all the people wanting drone delivery, urban air mobility, all those sort of things in Africa? Well, kids, this is the sort of thing you're going to have to put up with quite frequently. Just the evening, just powering stuff. I know of one, and I've said it before, I know of one drone delivery trial that used all the power of an island for one charge of a thing to deliver a kilo. And it took the guys from America did not believe that was the case. They didn't believe there was a place left on the planet where charging one drone would use all the power. So
do you have enough whale oil for this evening's stream, or what?
Well, that's finished in Durban a while ago, but yeah. There's a bit about. Go on.
So hang on. So if you wanted to do any kind of drone delivery, you would need generators and everything where you are right now.
Yeah.
There'd be no chance to do it any other way, because that 14-hour gap, the drone could deliver something, but then it's stuck with you for the next 14 hours.
Yeah, exactly. And good evening to everyone. I can't put any comments up on it because I'm mobile and I don't touch anything on this. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And the other sort of interesting thing is in that 5G will save the world. All the 5G towers, everything's going down here now because everything's sized for us to have. It's got battery backup, but they can't put too much in these places because they'll get stolen, and they can't put too much solar up because it will get stolen. So they size it for 4 hours off a day, and that's that. And the bigger ones, they've actually encased. How's the internet work? Well, it's only just gone off, Wolf. So I've got about 2 hours of internet now on the tower that's about 8 kilometers behind me. And that is, funny enough, that is a 5G tower. I think I've told this story on the stream. I don't know. But we have a private 5G network here, which is very cool. And I'm the third. Oh, there's only 3 of us on this tower. But I know it's only going to last 2 hours. And that's because of theft. So I don't know if you remember the Lake Victoria Challenge and Tanzania renderings of wonderful wooden places and delivery vertiports. So it would be amazeballs and lovely. And they weren't very happy when I was there and said, mine will consist of barbed wire and shipping containers. Because if we don't do that, they wanted at one stage, one group wanted to come in and drop these places in and leave them there. And I said, well, they'll be there about an hour. And then they'll be gone. And so that's one of the issues in Africa. But anyway, enough of that. Enough of my problems. Enough of the candlelight. Let's crack on with what firmware are we going to update first, Ian? We're going to do our Mavic 3 Mini and have it fly away, or are we going to do our new fancy goggles for the 2 people that have them? And
lots of people have the goggles, they just don't have the other bit.
Are we going to do that? And does it really make a difference? And have you put your video out yet, Bruce?
No, I haven't yet. I wanted to see Tommy. Oh my God, he's one of the 3rd people that got a set of this gear, and I've just watched his video, which is why I'm late to the party. He makes some interesting observations. So with that, I'm consolidating all the stuff that's been shown, including JB's update to the software, and going to sort of try and explain what I think the situation is, where it could go, and whether or not you should buy now, buy later, or not buy at all.
You shouldn't buy now, that's for sure.
Oh man, there goes your affiliate link, Gary. You've lost your revenue.
You shouldn't buy now. Give it 6 months. There's a lot of good here, but there also needs to be perspective. You know, you're seeing a lot of comments on people going, why would they launch it like this? Why wouldn't they wait until it was ready? Okay, DJI have had 7 years plus of wireless video system experience. And in fact, the FPV was their 7th generation of wireless video. So anyone who thought they were going to walk out the door and be comparable overnight was delusional. It was never going to happen. It's actually better than I thought it would be looking at the new firmware. If it had launched with that firmware, I would have been gone, okay, that's fine. Everything, I think they've paid the price for rushing. They weren't where they thought they would be, because something interesting is all of the firmware that was tested was on the goggles. That's the same version I had on my goggles. So that would have been what was on them from production, Bruce, which could have been, we know could have been anything from 2 months. So I suspect what's happened is they've gone out the door, the firmware wasn't ready, and all the videos have been made. Now, it all smacks of rushing. Not JB, you know, the JB was given very little time. No one had time. Same as Things video tonight, Bruce. That looks like, again, it's on the old firmware and not what's launched today. The hardware is solid. So the product is more than capable. So now this comes down to software development. And do they have the experience and the time and the money? That's really what this will now come down to. The hardware is more than capable. It's beyond the DJI chipset, way more powerful because it's a much newer chipset. It has everything on board. There's a lot that hasn't been published out there yet. The guys have been digging into in the background, but it's got everything it needs. The chipset is capable. We are in a position now where everyone used to say there wasn't a chipset available to do what DJI do. We're beyond that. It was hiding under our noses all of the time. We didn't know it was there until we really dug it out. So it's software now. And it's if they can do what DJI do. And what DJI are best at is always topping a product off. If we look at everything they make, there are not copies, but people competing with them. Autel, Skydio. But time and time again, DJI have that little bit of magic, I call it, which it isn't, but they have something that just makes the product a bit better, a bit more rounded, a bit more easier to use. And the question remains is if Walksnail can do it. And it's, for me, it's that simple.
It's going to be interesting. That H.265 encoder is going to be a critical thing. And the way they tune it, because there are so many parameters in an H.265 encoder, it's a very difficult task to make it work as well as the DJI system. I mean, they've lost, they don't have the same prioritization of viewing area. They don't handle the bit rate versus the latency issue quite as nicely as DJI because it stutters. There's a lot of stuttering in that system, even the JB's one.
About that today,
and so they've prioritized image quality over latency, which is kind of strange because, or the other thing is they're also working with fixed latency. Notice the latency does not vary nearly so much as it does on DJI. So they've chosen to try and retain that image quality, and basically the granularity of the bitrate adjustment seems to be a lot more coarse. So they've got a lot of tuning to do, but as Ian says, it looks like the hardware is up to the task. It's just, do they have the time and the skills and so forth to tune it to the degree that it's necessary to be as good as or better than the DJI?
And it's years of experience behind DJI. You know, if we look at, as I said, the DJI is their 7th revision. There was everyone forgets, but there was an FPV system before this one, which everyone said was useless. And that was their learning curve. You know, and I'll be honest, the hardware wasn't good enough in that. We now know, but that was 2017. So the hardware caught up in 2019 and they could, or 2018, and they could do it. I think if this had launched in a different way, I think they could have had this much better how it had been perceived. If they'd have come to the community and gone, look, it ain't where it needs to be today, but we're going to put it on sale because we want your help getting it where it needs to be. If you've got the money, buy it. We'll support it. We'll help it. It's just, you can't say they've lied because they didn't tell anyone anything. That's the irony here. They can't actually say they lied because they didn't say anything at all.
I think a very wise man once said, you only get one chance to make a first impression. And I think they kind of blew that. If, as you say, if they'd left it till even this latest software update, I think they would have had a lot more uptake immediately by the community. But I didn't see why a company the size of Teal or Red Cat has to solicit community funding for a project like this. I wonder if the sort of imperative to get it out quickly wasn't more to say, well, look, Fat Shark's still alive and we're still competitive. Maybe there was some kind of pressure behind the scenes we didn't know about because they bought Fat Shark and it was was just lying there dead in the water. They needed to prove to Red Cat that, hey, no, we are still alive, we're still competitive, and this may have been the way they chose to do that.
Is it a coincidence that the launch was just before the end of that fiscal quarter? Have a think about that. Now,
totally.
And if you go into Red Cat's and ignoring Fat Shark, but go into Red Cat's earnings calls, their last fiscal quarter was very poor on Fat Shark, and they used the words, "People know there's a new product coming," which we sort of went, "No, we don't. This is the first we've heard of this," and they were blaming the poor results on like the iPhone launch, which was nonsense. No one knew something was coming from them. But I have a feeling there was pressures outside. There's also a reality. This is not a Fat Shark system. This is Walksnail. This is Cadex, whoever Walksnail can, because you listen to all the language, all of the noise. Don't get me wrong. I firmly believe Fat Shark have had a hand in designing the goggles. Greg, I think there's just too much well done for it not. There's someone with experience there.
But answer me this. Why does the Fat Shark goggle have a battery range of 2S to 5S and the Avatar is 2 to 6? Why would Fat Shark cripple their own goggles? Because everyone runs 6S flight packs. They want to just be able to use a 6S flight pack on their goggles. You can't do that with the Fat Shark. What are they thinking?
We think it's identical, and Fat Shark have chosen the 5S because all of their products are 5S because they usually say 5S. But
can you plug yours into a 6S pack and see if it blows up?
But we will have the tear down images of the Walksnail in the next day. So we've already done this one. No, we've already done this one. But it's hard. I'll be honest, the hardware is very, very good. The hardware there's no issues here on the hardware. The goggle is astonishingly well designed. Someone commented to me who is involved in this stuff and just went, wow, that's quite ingenious what they've done there. There's been thought. And look, Greg must have been involved because only Greg would put the SD card in between the goggles, in between the eyepieces where you need tiny fingers and nails to get it out, right? No one else would want that there. Everyone else would put it below. It's going to be interesting. They have opportunity here. They have more pilots on tap than anyone. You know, if you think of Sky Zone and HD Zero have a lot of great community and DJI, but they have Rotor Riot. They have they have a lot of people who know what they're doing to help them. But I'm just not
really. Don't you think that all muddied it this time? Don't you think having all those shiny people going saying this is brilliant as an elt?
Yeah, but they said that HD Zero was brilliant. They said that DJI was brilliant. They said analog was brilliant.
Yeah, in many ways, I am glad my VTX has been delayed because it will give me more perspective on the launch now. I've had more time, you know, because if I'd have got it on day one like I got the goggles, I'd have now been putting the video out probably today. And today we have new firmware. And then I'd be in the same position of everyone else. And the nice thing is I'll be able to review this based on the new firmware. I won't even look at the old firmware. I have no interest in that at all. We'll discuss what's out today. I'm going to compare it directly to the other systems, fly it on the same aircraft. I've already created rigs for doing it. And really it will be about, is this a viable purchase today? That's what this comes down to. And then really, look where it's at in 6 months. And it's going to be hard to say anything else. I'll be honest.
But isn't this all a lot of fuss about nothing? Because how many are going to get bought in the end? 5,000, 10,000, 100,000?
It's small.
There's a chip shortage, so it doesn't.
It's a good thing for the industry because now there's 3 players. So that, you know, having 2 players is never good, right? Because DJI are bad at the best of times and shove them into a monopoly situation, they're even worse. There has been a lot of discussion this week. There's been some open discussion about what's coming next from DJI. We know enough to be dangerous now. The product there's some stuff I've known for a while, but I couldn't share, but some of that's now in the public domain, so I can. And it's looking like DJI's next FPV air unit is a combined air unit and camera system. So it's basically the Action 2 and the air unit in one. We've known about that based on a few reasons, but now it's out there. So that's an interesting development, but I'm not sure that's a product everyone's going to want because that comes with some pretty big drawbacks, which is A, cost. How are they going to combine that camera and that air unit into one for under, say, $300? And B, you're going to have to transfer that one unit between all your quads. How practical is that? Is the camera hardwired? That often the very best cinematic people will actually fly with 2 different angles because you don't need to fly such a high bank angle on the aircraft. If you're flying, you can drop the camera back further and keep the drone much shallower. So it is interesting. I'm not convinced what DJI are going to bring is actually the product the community wants. But that's DJI.
No, because their action camera hasn't taken over. People are still using GoPros because GoPros are actually better in a lot of situations, certainly in respect to Jello and a few other things. So it's going to lock you into using the DJI camera. Most people will still run a GoPro on there as well. Yeah. So it's stuff that you know, and you can transfer the GoPro from one quad to another. So it's a one cost. Whereas if you're going to have to pay that for every drone, and most people take 3 or 4 drones if they're serious about this, it is a huge price penalty. I think there's going to be a turning point here. If the Avatar Fat Shark system can ramp up its software and tune that encoder and tune its RF system to work as well as DJI, I think DJI will be shooting themselves in the foot if they come out with this new air unit and then basically stop making air units and Vistas for the legacy market.
I think the one thing DJI has underestimated with FPV is there is no love for them here in this community.
Yes.
Okay,
what are you saying?
now,
we love DJI. They're fantastic. Everybody, hands up everyone that loves DJI.
Speak for yourself. Yeah, come on. Speak for yourself.
In the ready-to-fly drone market, they pretty much can do no wrong. However, in FPV...
Geofencing.
Most people don't care, though, Bruce. That's the thing. Most people just don't care.
Most
Whereas in
people
FPV, There's
Most
a
people are
lot
stupid.
of people who don't like them for many, many reasons. And all they need is an excuse to use something else. And HD0 was that and started to be that. And as you say, Bruce, if they can come very close, people will just go, I don't want that locked in. FPV is very much about people who, it's massively open source now. Just look how open source FPV is
Speaking
becoming.
of which, has Carl released anything else? How far has
Not
he's
yet.
promised,
They
but I
are
haven't
working
seen
on it.
anything.
Yeah, it hasn't come out yet.
What's to be worked on? Some chip documentation and
He's in the middle
just throw
of
the code out there and
goggles.
let people go.
I need to catch up with him and find out what the plan is on that. Actually, I haven't done it. They're still knee deep in the goggles because they want the goggles to be out the door. Well, production plan is not long.
The problem is that with this firmware update, and it's starting to look almost as good as DJI, but it's not DJI, it puts Carl in a very difficult place because you've got a system that is to all intents and purposes, performs better. And for most people, what most people want, apart from pure racers, is that really glorious image and that wonderful RF performance and a system that degrades gracefully rather than painting a quilt on your eyes. That's something that he'll have to compete with. And I think his only option is to go open source sooner rather than later so the community can step in and take ownership and then have feel like it's part of they'll have a stake in it and they'll work with it. Like Betaflight.
Yeah, I think it'll all come when the goggles launch because the goggles are running on Linux and that's all open source. So I think it'll all drop at that point because that's where the big firmware stack is in the goggles as well. You know, but yeah, it's interesting. My VTX is shipped. I've had to order one from the US in the end. I've had to pay the penalty simply because the UK stock has been held up in Taiwan, I've been told. I think there's been bad weather in Taiwan. So that's affected shipments out. It's nothing to do with Walk Snail or Fat Shark. The US shipments made through. It seems European stuff hasn't, unfortunately. So I've ended up now dropping the money on the US one. That shipped today, so that will be here probably Thursday or Friday, and then I'll be able to finally fly it.
So just remind me, when are the Walk Snail goggles coming out, and what are they called again?
They are now shipping as well. So what it appears to be, the rumor, or not the rumors, Greg said that Fat Shark would launch first. It did by about a week. That's the reality of it. The Walk Snail stuff has now shipped. So Walk Snail shipped the VTXs about 2 days after the Fat Shark goggles launched. They ended up in the US early weekend, I think late Friday. But I now know of 4 or 5 people who have had dispatch notices for the actual Walk Snail units. So we should see info on them in the next 24 to 48 hours. They literally should be landing, and hopefully we'll get them torn down and we'll have a look at this whole chip mess and try to figure out what's going on there.
So who's going to end up the bigger name out of this, though? Because if I'm getting my my drone-based stuff from Walk Snail, and I know that it's called Walk Snail, are they going to end up with the bigger name?
I'll be honest, and it will make me very unpopular. However, the review will be, if I find out the goggles are the same, I will say whatever my opinion is will be, but if you're going to buy them, buy the Walk Snail model, and that is for one reason. One reason, they are including antennas in the kit for the same cost, and that is $30 to $50 for a brand new pilot. Yes, many pilots will have antennas, but they won't have RPSMAs. They're not standard antennas.
But will the antennas be any good? So who was it that someone was saying that one of the reviewers, where they get their antennas from? Because they came with the goggles.
I thought when I heard that, oh yeah, but you don't want to fly with those because they're not as good as these ones. I thought, oh, yeah, I instantly thought when I heard that, I saw that review as well. I can't remember who it was. I instantly thought, is that a dig at the Walk Snail version of this when it comes?
I think it look, cost is cost.
Joshua, that's right. It was Joshua.
Yeah, the cost is cost. And the included antennas may not be the best, but when you're shelling out 600 quid and you haven't got a set of antennas, then they'll keep you going until you change them, if you want to change them later down the line.
I think if you're spending $600 on a set of goggles, you're going to spend money on decent antennas. I think Joshua said it's going to cost you about $700 by the time you get some decent antennas. It's an expensive set of goggles.
Yeah,
the goggles. It's a MIMO, is it? Multi and multi.
and we.
MIMO, is it?
It's actually multi and single out. Yeah, MISO, from what I can tell.
Yeah.
I just need to look in a little bit deeper just in case I've got it wrong. There is only one PA, but I have had a thought overnight that they could be switching in the antenna 4 via one of the ICs, but I can't see tracks. I need to dig into the PCB for that.
But it's going to be interesting tracking the aftermarket antennas that are really good, the best in the world for 1,000 rated for 1 gigawatt.
The only good thing is, everything from DJI will fit. It's the same fitment. The great thing is, there's everything out there. So if people are DJI users, they just swap them over. I've been running my DJI antennas on them on the bench just so I can use them.
But as Tommy says, if you're flying DJI, you're not going to switch to this because the moment the benefits aren't there, you've got a commitment. So it doesn't really matter. People are going to buy this are probably new entrants who have been flying analog to date, or those who want the best of every, the latest of everything, or maybe HD0 users that have decided they want to go to a system that has compression and a better image quality. So I don't think there's going to be many DJI people selling all their gear and moving to this, at least not initially.
Yeah.
It's going to need 6 months.
If you are a new guy, and you come to it, you go googly, YouTube, most of it's going to come out DJI gear now, isn't it? And you're going to go, oh, most of the world seems to be flying that, therefore I'll do that.
And the other problem is that although DJI are known to drop products at the blink of an eye, we have seen an awfully large number of digital FPV systems that have been introduced with lots of hoo-ha and fanfare, and then a year later they're nowhere to be seen. There's connects.
You're going to be saying analog's best. I know you. It's almost coming for me very soon.
No, I think analog is one of the best. They're all best. I fly them all, and they all have strengths and weaknesses. It's just the analog is better.
Isn't wrong. No, it's been a good launch. It's been an interesting launch. Yeah, there's a lot I could say about the behavior, but I'm going to try and move on from that now, because there's been a lot said about this whole chipset mess and the relabeling.
Well,
and
then, so then Philip jumps on today about the chips, fake STM32s in the new Pixel, and then lots of other people are saying no, or the new.
That flight controller looked like the Holybro Pixel 6 X. Now,
yes,
that is the layout of the PCB. Now, the question mark is this the actual Holybro 6X, or is this some Chinese clone?
There.
Now, I can't find a Chinese clone online of the Holybro 6X. So I'm only at this point led to believe it can only be that, because I can't find any copies of it. They're not these. So have people come on and said it isn't true? Is that what they've said?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, people are saying, no, of course it's real. Oh, all right then.
What, the chipset he's showing is real, or what they said? The chipset they're showing is not real. It does get complicated with ARMs.
Yeah. Well, it's just an interesting first shot in this argument. Well, today is the first day of this current scandal, so it'll run whatever. But I wouldn't be surprised, because chip shortage, they'll put in there whatever they can.
There's two sides to this. So in the sense of, you've got ARM chipsets that are licensed. So there are legitimate companies that make ARM chipsets that are not STM. So STM32 is the biggest, but they use ARM chipsets. They're widely used in ESCs, actually. ESCs, FPV ESCs especially, have F1s, and they're not STM32. They're made by someone else, but they're ARM licensed, all legitimate. But then you've got these. These are direct compatible clones. Have you got an image of it, Gar? You probably can't show on the phone.
Not in this current situation, no.
No.
It's on the book of the face, and it was our dear friend from.
It was Mr. Philip Rouse.
He started it. He's probably got some opinions on it.
No, these are well-known fake chipsets. What is being shown there is a well-known fake chipset. There's a very good article by someone who bought something like 10 devices the same with this chipset on, and out of the 10, 6 of them wouldn't even program. 3 of them programmed but died, and it was horrendous. It really was. Let me see if I can find.
They should have got some Vertex 5 FPGAs. That would have solved the problem.
That would have solved it, Bruce. Yeah. They're used widely in flight systems.
Well, you can find it. Here we are. It reminds me of these very fake little. What were they badged as? MANs, I think. From
MN8s.
And these didn't have any flash memory or anything in them. They're very, very fake GPSs.
So this is. Can I share? Let me just see. Will this
Well,
let
let's
me
see.
share?
I know you should be able to, but I don't know what
Share
notification I'll
screen.
get.
Okay.
All
So
right,
if I go
you give it a try, and then I'll
okay,
see if I've normally got to accept that.
share, and I've put share, and is it saying anything?
Or no, I'm afraid I have no notification of that from
That's all.
mobile. I'm very sorry. I'm
Well, that's
so
disappointing.
sorry. On many levels, on many
You can share all by yourself.
So
I can't even see it.
do we even see an end to this chip shortage, or is it just going to get worse, do you reckon, or is it now at its worst point?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because all the new fab plants aren't for this kind of chip technology. They're for the new GPU, CPU, high, very, very small process, 3 nanometer size. No one wants to invest in old tech, even though there's huge demand, because they know that if they invest in stuff like STM32s, it'll be replaced eventually. So I think we're going to see an area where we have some functional equivalents come out with a smaller scale integration. They can get more out of a wafer. It becomes cheaper to make them. So we're going to see a transition from the STM32s we know to a new generation of microcontrollers, which will probably see everyone having to do major redesigns and things. But it's rather than just blending through, we're going to jump at some stage.
There was an interesting article I was reading the other day, and anything above, what they call leading edge, not bleeding edge, but behind the current. And I think they were saying 60 and 70 and 90 nanometer. Most of the fabs only make them on what they call 200 mil wafers, and most newer foundries are on 300 mil wafers, which allows, I think it was 200% more ICs on the same size wafer.
Wow.
And the problem is the cost of changing to that is massive. There's no change in functional. They can output so much more by just changing to the larger wafer size, but it's all new equipment and it's all everything. And no one wants to invest in that. And the problem then is you're starting to try and bring this stuff down to the new nodes. That's the difficulty. And you can't do that with MEMS. The problem here isn't just the STM32. It's actually gyros and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And MEMS has a completely different problem of, different manufacturing process, different size. There's talk of this
gyros were sorry, I'm jumping in, but they were going end of life anyway. So they sort of went end of life as we went into this problem, and they're not being picked up, are they? It's just not happening.
We'll be going back to hamsters and wheels soon.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, they're very, very accurate, those hamsters. It's just the 8 months that they live or whatever.
It is interesting when we start looking at these chips. The chipset that Philip's shown on his Facebook page as fake is the co-processor. So it's the processor on the FMU board, not the flight stack. So this is the processor that handles all of the I/O. So all of the servo ports, all of the handling of the communication on the FMU. And, if that crashes, then you lose. Your CPU could be running absolutely fine, but if that goes down, you're going to lose all I/O or control. And we have to be fair. This appears to be a Holybro controller. They may not know about this. They could be using contract manufacturing, and this is something that the factory have done. Now you can argue they have failed their own QA process if that is the case. But there is so many dodgy things going on. This could be 1 in 10 being slipped in. There's so many things like that that's happened before. I remember the huge capacitor crisis in PCs in like the year 2000, where there was loads of fake Panasonic capacitors round. So all of the motherboard manufacturers were fitting them. And look, this hit Dell, it hit HP, it hit everyone. They all thought they were buying legitimate capacitors. And like 18 months later, they were all drying out and going pop. And motherboards were failing left, right, and center.
These may not be fake chips. It may have been that when they were using the paint stripper gun to peel them off the washing machine control boards, that they overheated them.
Exactly. It just makes me go from one of my many other bits of dodgy hardware, which is the radio boards that were made, and they just put a bit of plate over the
3DR logo.
The 3DR logo. I've got some of those here somewhere. Yeah, I suppose it's symptomatic of. Hang on, are they in this one? Of our industry, isn't it? I suppose. But yeah, it's so there's that. Now, the other firmware I want to talk about was: are the Mavic Mini 3s flying away now? As I look,
I've not seen much.
Have you not? Oh, I've seen those people saying, "My Mavic, I updated my firmware, and my Mavic 3 Mini's flown away." Well, 4 or 5.
You always get that after updates.
Lost link, and then luckily returned to launch. But okay, so it's not being used.
There's always a plethora of people who update their firmware and fly it out 8 kilometers just to make sure it's working okay. Do you know what I mean? Just to make sure it's all, and then complain when it doesn't come back. And you're like,
well, I'd complain too because it says in the promotional material it'll come back to you. So if it doesn't, I'd be bitching and moaning.
Well, also they go out and fly it in winds that are beyond the drone's capabilities. So it goes up. And they go, oh, it's flying away. No, it's not. It's being blown away because you're flying in winds. It can't handle you, muppets.
Well, I was gonna say, I always try and fly downwind. Whenever I'm testing something, I fly it downwind of me, just to make sure to see if it will come back properly.
Use half your battery going downwind and the other half coming half the way back.
It's exactly right. That's exactly what it's for, isn't it? I mean, it's halfway. It must work. Surely that must work. Yeah. Okay, so there's not really a big scandal in the Mavic 3 Mini world.
I'm sure ArduPilot must calculate based on wind speed how far you can go, doesn't it? It has all those fancy features, doesn't it?
Well. No, you see, you're making me pull up all my. That's exactly what AutoPilot did, and we worked on that. We worked on that to make sure that that it had a rolling sort of odometer, however you say it, or so it knew. No, it put the wind in. It said, no. If you want to come back in this wind, you need to be going home now, not halfway down the line or whatever. So it did. It did used to work out on the wind. I'm not sure AutoPilot does that even. And I'm talking an old bit of equipment.
Ardu Rover probably does.
Oh, Ardu Rover will. Oh no! I've dropped one of my trays of crap. There's crap all over the floor now. Oh, bugger!
Anyway, see, the beauty of keeping your place untidy is you never notice when you do that.
No.
You're so right. You're so right.
When are you putting this video up then, Bruce? I've got to look forward to this.
I'll be doing it when I finish the stream here, so it'll be a couple of hours after that. I think I'm going to include some snippets from all the other videos because I don't have any video to show, so I'm just going to plagiarize everybody and steal their stuff and monetize it.
You absolute shill, making YouTube videos for just clicks. You absolute, and likes and making it.
Hey, does that goggles bind to your chair?
Does it now?
Yeah.
The amount of accusations.
First time ever, I turn up early for your live stream, and all I see is that bloody chair. What are you talking about, man?
and didn't he get a lot of super chats that day? Like super chats. You must be really. Are you retiring now, Ian, with your wealth?
Not when YouTube takes 50% of them.
Actually, think about it. You probably make a lot more out of a stream than you do out of a normal video. You should just stick to streaming, mate.
Oh God, yeah. You genuinely, if that was the norm, I would genuinely make more money off some videos. Only make like $10 a month. Bruce, you know that yourself. $10-15 a month.
Hang on. Somebody told me that was per annum.
That's me. That's me that does.
That's me as well.
$3 per hanging.
Yeah, I did laugh. Someone said something this week. It's quite funny. The streams, streaming has built up very nicely. Do you know what I mean? We had over 200 people this week, which was incredible. And
but it's good stream. So I don't watch it myself, but I
don't blame you.
No,
I wouldn't either. But no, and I've started to do things a bit differently as well, in the sense of I'm putting the audio out separately because people have asked for it, and stuff like that. But yeah, I can't complain at the moment. Things have grown quite substantially.
How's that little Chinese tablet working for your stream stuff? Is it you using that?
Okay, I'm not using that on the daily stuff. The setup here is different. That is actually going to be used next. I'm going to potentially live stream the 3 systems at the same time. If I can work it out to do it, I can live stream at least 2 of them. I can live stream HD0 and Walk Snail because of the HDMI output, but I don't know. I don't think I can live stream DJI very easily.
You'll be safe as long as you don't cross the beams.
Beams, yeah. I don't know how the 3 are going to behave, but yeah, I am going to be doing some stuff. But yeah, it's my setup here isn't using that because I have a predominantly fixed setup.
Well, you need to email them and tell them to send me one because I could use that.
I'll send them an email to say there's a guy who wants to get into streaming and is going to make a large video on it.
Yeah, he's got a very small channel and he's based in New Zealand and they do nothing down there, so you've got to give him a chance.
The likes of the sizes of Bruce will not be seen again in recent. Bruce is you got 2 channels over 100,000 now, Bruce, isn't it? Both of them.
Yeah, I think RC Model Reviews is over 200 now.
Yeah, 200. Yeah, you're over 300,000 between the 2, aren't you?
It's 400,000 between the 2, I think.
2,
if you add them up, yeah.
You're not going to see the likes of that today. It's very hard to get to those numbers.
It is very hard to get a channel started. I did that other one, just a personal channel, and it gets no views. No one watches it, which I can understand. It's only me on the screen. It's nothing interesting.
But it is. If I look at how long it's taken to it took to 12 to 10 to 15, and we're heading for 30. And yes, the numbers go up, but it takes time. It doesn't grow at the rate it did. I think anyone at 60 is probably a big channel-ish in its niche now. Do you know what I mean? If you look at 60,000, that's in today. If you can get to 60,000 in drones, especially, that's big.
Have you noticed how the numbers are? We've talked about it before, but the numbers are down right across the board for all the hobby channels, like in the models and drones and things. I think because people have the peak. We've had peak drone, and now everyone's finding something else to do. It is a small niche, and we have to live with that. So. Yeah, I wouldn't like to be trying to start a channel these days.
No, but it is a small niche, but it's still. So I suppose we're kind of more skewed towards the hobby side of it thing here now, I guess. But the delivery drone stuff is growing and growing and growing. The simple, small, good stuff. Of course, urban air mobility, AM, and I may be going to speak to Lilium in 2 Mondays' times. I'm going to give them some crap, I'll tell you.
Still pitching the vertiport, eh?
Oh, yeah. What I'm going to do to them is I'm going to give them a very decent rate for their landing fees here at my vertiport. Won't cost them much at all. They just need to make sure about their noise figures and things like that. But all that sort of venture capital hyped stuff is busy being blown apart at that side of it. But the more sensible sizes are moving forward.
Didn't YASA though just hand part of the urban air taxis a big kick up the back end actually, or a big disappointment to a degree, because they've said you've got to have a pilot. You can't have these air taxis.
The FAA. No, the FAA said that, and EASA said, "Well, we'll think about it."
No, didn't EASA just release their thing where they said that in their recent thing? Didn't it say you have to have a pilot for now? We're not going to allow autonomy.
Yeah, but they're letting them. They're going to sort of reduce the certification requirements, whereas America said, no. It's got to be. I forgot what they call it. Power lift. That's it.
Yeah,
helicopter. Power lift. Yeah. No, not a helicopter. An Osprey. An Osprey.
An Osprey.
Or an Osprey, a Harrier, or an F-35.
Or a Feely Rotodyne.
A Feely Rotodyne. Pardon? What did you say? Pardon? I can't quite hear you.
Can you imagine how many pilots are even going to qualify for that?
Well, the interesting thing with that is that when a lot of Harrier, Osprey, and F-35 pilots left the forces, the FAA gave them a ticket that said it was for those aircraft, and they struggled to get airline jobs. They weren't recognised by the airlines because they weren't flying categories that...
Didn't an unreasonably large number of people who flew those craft and left the Air Force do so in a wooden box?
Very sadly, the Osprey, yes. And the Osprey is a model of differences training of you can't pick a helicopter pilot up and make him fly half an airplane, or an airplane driver pick him up, make him fly half a helicopter, because there's so many states of flight that thing can get itself into that's abnormal, that it's just bloody dangerous.
I'm sure Elon Musk would have a solution.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, no, he hasn't invented it yet. He'll invent it shortly, and then he'll have a solution.
As soon as he finds prior art.
Yeah, absolutely. No, so it is a tricky time for those larger size platforms. But if you're going to move 150 kilos, then there's loads of stuff out there that will move. Converted aircraft that will move it. If you're going to move 50 kilos, you're getting right into our wheelhouse then. There's lots of platforms that will do that, lots of reliable autopilots, but of course, no sensible infrastructure to allow you to do that. That's the only, apart from Vertiport Africa, of course, which is ready to receive. I cut some trees down this week. I'm ready to receive your craft now. Send them immediately.
And I've been practicing my blender skills so I can get into the drone industry.
Oh, of course, it's the only requirement. But I bet even so, Tokoroa will be. Actually, how's the tower?
The tower still lives, but the council is wasting an inordinate amount of money trying to determine whether it's safe or not. Even though I said to them, "Look, I will buy it for $1, whether it is safe or not." So they don't have to make a decision if we're going to sell it or not. But I think what they want to do is say, "Oh, it's far too unsafe to sell it to you, and we'll just knock it down." And no, it's. I think mainly, this is my honest opinion, the current mayor wants that gone because she sees that as an icon of me, and she doesn't like me a lot. So her final move will be to wipe that from the face of the planet. But I have other plans I'm going to announce this week. I've got a guy working on a 3D printer model of the tower. So you better print your own Tokoroa Airfield Tower, and then I want people to go to other well-known landmarks and put it on the ground and take a photo of it in those locations. So we will have the Tokoroa Tower all over the world, and I'll put it on their social media, and then I'll say to the council, "Look, this is a global icon. It's everywhere, but where it should be."
So make sure you put it on. So put it on Thingiverse. So you need to get it onto Thingiverse and put that in the description. And yeah, get it out there. Let me know. I've got a 3D printer knocking about somewhere.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I'll put it up here.
And our council is stupid enough to say, no, that's a terrible idea. Our marketing professionals didn't think of that. This is an awful idea. And no, we're going to knock it down anyway because it's it's just all about personality conflict. I think that's the problem. But I've got a 3D printer now. I was going to buy one, and then a friend of mine gave me one. And so I went on to Thingiverse and I've downloaded all the STL files. But I noticed there's a bit of a con going on there because I've downloaded heaps of different STL files, but they're all for a bowl of noodles. I don't know how that works.
Yes. Are you? It's a black art, isn't it? Setting up a printer. So obviously you've not been back to another council meeting because I sent them a memo saying that actually you were dangerous and you needed knocking down. That's the way I thought we should deal with it.
And did they ever respond to come on the stream and discuss? No, they didn't. Oh, only those within something to hide have anything to fear from the spotlight of public scrutiny.
So did you say, Bruce, sorry.
Go on, mate.
No, I was just going to say, did I hear him say he's got into 3D printing? You're right. You've got 5 years of pain before you catch up to the rest of us. I've been printing this weekend, but I've been doing resin. So
resin's horrible stuff because that's toxic. That is nasty. The stink of it. Never be in a room with it.
Don't drink too much of it.
It doesn't smell that bad. Trust me. You want to smell the white part. It's nothing like that.
You see the printer actually behind you. So if you look over Ian's left shoulder, it's actually behind him. It's the orange thing just there.
That's not the printer. That's the cleaner. Right, it's resin printed, isn't it? That's the cleaner. You need a cleaner for the parts on top of a resin printer. The printer's over there at the moment by the door.
I never had a cleaner for mine.
That's a parts cleaner.
Never had one for mine.
And a UV lamp.
But you don't get many support material and all that, do you, with a resin?
It's different, yeah. You generally print off support. but it's very different, much less support material. It's far more detailed. I have to say, this one's a Creality, and out the box, the detail on the prints is astonishing compared to FDM, which is your standard filament printer. You won't see these. These are like stick ends. Yes, they look like something you can get from Ann Summers, but they've got little knobbly edges on.
Yeah, you might. Yeah.
That's different to what I had. But it's crazy as you watch this thing coming out of the liquid, as the UV shoots its light, and you see this thing coming out, and you see the model coming out. You're going, really? That's just
it's a lot of work. You know, there is no question. Resin is far more work. I've got bowls of isopropyl in
I thought it was easier.
No, it's the cleanup. You've got to clean the printer. You can leave resin in. I've left it in a few days. It's okay. It doesn't go off. It's better now.
But it does a reasonable job.
A reasonable job, Bruce. I've ordered.
It's actually funny. That was the original 3D printing technology way back more years ago when 3D printing first came out. It was resin printing with lasers and UV light. That's exactly. So they've just revived it because it has some benefits.
Well, it's simple now because it's all LCD panels. So they actually don't use lasers now. They use LCD panels shooting the light on the panel. So it's basically, instead of there being laser, there's just a 4K panel, and it lights up. It's a UV panel, and it lights up at the correct place to
how do they get it coherent?
It's got focusing built into it. It's very clever, very, very clever. It's come on hugely. The printers, to be honest, out the box, plug it in, one bed level, pull this stuff in, and the prints are exceptional. It is very, very good.
What's it like cost-wise there? That resin's pretty expensive, isn't it?
It is. And you can, don't get me wrong, you can get about a kilo of standard resin for about £23. I've just ordered in this stuff over here. I've got some flexible resin, which I'm looking forward to trying. It's almost about the same as a sort of kid's toy rubber tire flexible. That's the level it's at. But that's like £90 a kilo compared to the other stuff. It's very
how. But obviously, I suppose you can make something that weighs a kilo if you used all of it. But I mean, how much do you using on a typical print?
It's hard to say. I did a print for my kids of quite a large minion figure, and it's probably about the size of a baseball, and that used, I reckon, 200 mils. But something I found out afterwards was I think it was solid. I didn't check the model. There is a feature in resin where you can ask it to hollow out the model for you in the software, and I didn't do that. So I have a feeling that was solid.
And the problem is, if you do a solid one, well, the problem is with it solid, it also sometimes a liquid in the middle. So you got to be really careful. You've got to get a plug hole put in some models.
Yeah.
So
you can print chocolate with a soft center.
Soft-centered prints.
Soft-centered prints. Yeah, you have, and it's a different process. It is very, the setup. You could have a really nice setup for this. You'd need a bench with multiple areas and gloves and stuff, and you could get the process much tidier. FDM is simpler. There's no question that you can hit print and go and it works. This was something that I was interested in trying, and I'm sort of having a look at it of how you can wind it into drones and FPV, and where is the ability? Where does the benefits of FDM, resin come in? And there is some, especially if you're doing prototyping. It is phenomenal. The results are just phenomenal. It really is. But I'm looking forward to printing the rubber stuff. But there's some very strict requirements.
Yeah, watch his OnlyFans channel for that outcome.
Subscribers only.
It's subscribers only, but I bought half a kilo. I wasn't spending £90 on it. I spent 45 quid on half a kilo of the rubber stuff. But from what I've seen, there are people making you can literally make finished products with it. There's some of the real soft rubber ones where they use them on like industrial sites to print new seals. So a seal is gone on something and they haven't got one. They will legitimately just print a new seal and
you could even print the rubber ball that it would balance on its nose.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I
just let it go, that one.
You beat me to it. I was going to think of trying to do something with that as well. Yeah, no.
It's been a learning process. It's super interesting.
So what? Yeah. I quite fancy a resin printer, but I don't know whether I won't have a use for it. I know I won't. I won't. It'll be a toy.
They are much cheaper than they ever were. You know, these Creality, I think it's like $400. They're much simpler than they ever were. They just work, but it's a process, resin printing. Whereas FDM is, once your printer is tuned, Bruce, and it works, it becomes an appliance. Mine is like that over there. It's off. I can hit Pro, and it just works. It just works every time. You don't worry about it. Once you get yourself in a position where you understand, I use lac, which helps stick it to the bed, and it just works. Whereas this is, once you finish, you got to be around, really. You then need to get the part off. You need to clean it in isopropyl alcohol. You need to dry it, clean the bed, clean that part of the printer, then put it in the UV cure oven or leave it outside. That's what that is. That's a dual device. It cures and it washes. So it's got a bowl full of isopropyl alcohol, not explosive at all.
Everything's explosives in his head.
I'm looking a lot closer now, waiting for it to go.
Absolutely safe, completely safe.
Definitely. Can you drop it?
Do you charge lipos in that at the same time?
Yeah. I use that for charging, Bruce. But yeah, you got a bowl of, but it's got a clever, it's got a magnetic blade in the bottom to steer the isopropyl up. So when you place it on the machine and start it, there's magnets in the machine that drag the turbine round and swish the isopropyl up.
See,
aerating it, just making sure it's absolutely right.
It is most explosive.
Is there a heating element?
I didn't do that. So what I had is I actually had a tub, and I would just drop my 3D prints, my prints into a big tub of just leave it to soak and give it a swirl myself every now and then. And then I'd have to take it out and leave it in the sunlight, because sunlight does the same thing. And just leave it out in the sun.
You just leave it out for like 6 hours in it, Mark, or 4 or 5 hours, something like that. Whereas that does, the UV unit does it in like 10 minutes. So what that does in 10 minutes, you could put outside. You don't need that. You absolutely
It's like a tiny tanning booth. How cool is that?
It is, yeah, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work with the lid off, unfortunately. It's got a safety feature on it to stop you.
You could put your hamster in there after he's finished on the gyro wheel.
I've just printed you this lovely play area. Yes. Oh, yeah. No, it does look like a faff. I think I'll stick with what I'm doing already.
It is a lot of work. I'm not going to pretend it isn't, but the results are just beyond. I can see why the modeling community, like the guys who do all the little modeling and all that, I can see instantly why they've got into it, because
a friend of mine makes all the N-gauge railway set stuff, all the tiny stuff. Yeah.
I can easily see why people get into it.
I'm glad I'm not reading out Tope's comment there, but I think he's exactly right. Anyway, so I'm not going to read that out. What are you going to make with the printer, Bruce? I'm intrigued. You've joined the hype trains right at the back.
Well, the first thing is an enclosure for the ADSB alarm. That's one thing I wanted to when I release it. So I'm going to do one for the Raspberry Pi W and one for the Raspberry Pi 4. But you can't get anything at the moment. I was trying to get some more Pi Ws and like 12. I think they don't ship until November. It's terrible.
The Pi Cow was out, isn't it, last week? I'll try and get some of those when we go overseas. But yeah,
they got the new little Pico with Wi-Fi. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, not the Pico. What is it? This one here. This is the
cow. The Pi Cow.
This one.
Pico, Is that a tiny one? You've got the tiny one that came out last week.
No, this is the one without the Wi-Fi. You can see there's no Wi-Fi on that one, but they have a Wi-Fi where the Raspberry Pi logo is, which is kind of cool because for building your own Internet of Things, which is supposed to be really big at some stage, but never will be.
Stopped using that term. We stopped using that term about 3 years ago. That's what
Metaverse now. The Internet of Things is gone. We're in the metaverse now.
Yeah.
STM32 on there. See, I'm going to get my paint stripper gun out and put it in a packet, put it on eBay.
That's the last thing I printed with my $79 3D printer, which is a little Morse code sender for a BBC microbit. But yeah, I'm very impressed with my $79 3D printer. It does.
You might just use a hot glue gun, eh? Just do it manually.
Funny enough, I did buy another one last week, but that was for another project.
Actually, speaking of, you can buy hot glue guns that use use filament, and you can do manual 3D printing. Have you seen those? Most ridiculous things I've ever seen.
Yeah, the pen ones. Yeah. You know, if you want a proper 3D printer, look at the Prusa XL, Gary. You know, you can print yourself a car. You know, that's the big one. That's
is
everyone.
What size is it?
Prusa XL. I don't know if it's launched yet, but it was for big stuff.
That's a copycat over there. It's a 500 by 500 print bed.
Oh yeah, I'd like one of those. Yeah, I would like one of those. Well, my lads, I don't know what my lad's got now, but he's going up to Swansea University where they've got lots of other toys. What I would really like is a 3D is a laser cutter. That's what I'd really like.
One of them in the
got
shed.
lots of work for that.
Build volume, the XL will do 36 by 36 by 36.
Yeah.
Well, so the only problem is it's nothing. 36 centimeters, that's nothing. What do you mean 3.6 meters?
The only problem is with that copycat 3D printer over there is the belt's broken. I need a new belt. I don't know where to get it from. It's the only problem. I've got one of the main belts broken. It's just sat there.
Yeah, you see that the real one has a belt and braces. You can't have too much redundancy.
If it's a copycat, it's probably, Mark. What's it look like again? Yeah.
I wonder
how many enders.
I wonder how many man hours all these three. Here's 4 old blokes with 3D printers.
Oh, speak for yourself. Enough of the old, thank you.
Yeah. I wonder how many hours of actual use there is in all these 3D printers in every month. I wonder what they're really contributing to the planet.
Using energy.
I'm printing Bitcoin. I'll be rich.
Poisonous chemicals, energy, and
I'm fully solar powered. I mean, I'm fully solar powered. This week, I've used £1.39 this week so far.
No, very good, very good. Well, that
so you don't understand the meaning of the word fully, do you?
Mark, I've burnt more than that in the last hour.
You probably have. Don't go off air, Ian. After this, we'll talk about solar batteries and how to build a 16 kilowatt system for about $3,000 in the UK.
You nicking batteries from forklifts again?
No. You can legit build a 16 kilowatt battery for about $3,000 in the UK.
That sounds about right.
18650.
We used to build those batteries when I was young. Well, I worked in a telephone exchange when I was a young lad as a technician, and they had the batteries were just big concrete tubs lined with a plastic liner and 2 big slabs of lead and some sulfuric acid, and that was enough to drive an entire telephone exchange. Big room full of them, but it was super cheap because the lead was cheap in those days, the acid's cheap, and you could fix it by just draining the vat and replacing the lead plates, and away you went.
No, well, I've got a friend who's just bought a big solar system and battery, and they've been looking at it to do it, and they can get the batteries in the UK for the 16 kilowatt system. You buy the 2 battery management systems off AliExpress from a particular supplier.
That's going to end well.
Is that from Firestarter?
I have to say they are legit. It's one of those ones that's been checked out. They're a supplier that's been certified.
They have a CE mark on them.
It's a red one with flames coming off it.
And then you use a particular inverter you use. So you get a particular inverter. I've got all the details somewhere in one of the computers.
Just mount the batteries upside down.
Then you can either...
No, that's for us, Bruce. That's for us down here. Yeah.
So you can either then, so if you want to do it, you can plug it into a normal 13 amp ring circuit. So it's on the 13 amp for battery, but if you want to, you can actually go into off your main grid, of course, off your main box. So you can plug it into the 30 amp or get a 30 amp into there.
Yeah, you need to show me some stuff. I want to have a look at this because I could be interested.
I thought you might be.
Yeah,
but the rack mounted things in this actually, funny enough, that we had a little shop in the village next to the butcher's that started selling solar gear, and I went in there today, and you can get everything, all the connectors, the panels, inverters, everything. And even in there, where it's super expensive down here for everything, it's really quite reasonable for 5 kVA battery rack-mounted ones. So you could get the 15. So you're talking about 16. I could get the 5 kVA made for me that would link together for not. It wasn't 16. It was 5.5. So I would get to 16 for about what you're saying about that money.
But if you went to buy like a grow watt hybrid inverter battery system, you would, for 5 kilowatts, you'd spend about 4 or 5 grand in the UK.
Well, mine's grow watt. Yeah.
Really? I wish I could. No, they're only they're £1,000 here. They're £1,000.
What for a 5 kilowatt battery system with management?
Yeah.
You see, that's because show how crazy the pricing is. Because here, you spend more than £1,000 on a new one, but you can, but 16 kilowatt.
I saw one in the village, 500 kilometres from the big city, for £1,000 today. So yeah. So if I shopped around, I could get it even cheaper.
But that's the thing. But a 16 kilowatt system, and people will laugh when you go plug it into a ring main. Well, 13 amps. If it's on the ring main, it will do everything apart from a kettle and the washing machine and the cooker at the same time. It'll handle a cooker by itself. It'll handle
20 amp use.
Who remembers Green Acres, eh? Remember when they could only plug in the jug and the one thing and it would blow the generator? It was a great program, Green Acres. You're probably all too young for that.
The only problem with plugging it in, Mark, is that plug will have a live pin all of the time it's on. That's where it gets dodgy. It's
I do get that. I do get there's a certain, but your ring main is designed to do a certain thing and handle, the current. If you're on the 30 amp or whatever cooker ring main, you're going to be all right. And it's feeding the rest of the house. But you tell it to charge overnight. So if you're on Octopus Go, you'll tell the battery system to charge at 12:30 till 4 a.m. for 7p a kilowatt. You're then going to have 7p's worth of 16 kilowatts at 7p. And then during the daytime, if you're watching the TV or anything, just standard power use, it will just keep going. And of course, until 16 kilowatts gone. But if you've got solar as well with that, you can have the solar system, which will just grab the energy.
The entire solar system?
The entire solar system on your roof.
A very, very big back garden. Very big back garden to have the entire
Mercury's toxic, remember that.
But you can do this really cheaply. It's not expensive to do, and it's a bit of a myth that it is.
Well,
and it's not hard.
It looks to me that Type's got about the same price for gear as we get here. I'm very interested. You talk about the CAN bus, the way that this is going off topic, but it's interesting that this group of people, though, droney people, this is us, isn't it?
We're just nerds.
Just nerds, isn't it? But so you say about the CAN bus because I'm interested in getting a grow watt 5.5 kilowatt units in order to daisy chain them, or I'm not sure it's daisy chaining, but whatever they call it, they seem to scale quite nicely up to 4 units up to 5.5. What do you know about that Type? You obviously know something about that. I want to hear Alibaba.
Yeah, I see Type does, but my friend who's got the grow watt, he asked the suppliers, how does he access a serial bus on the grow watt? So he wants to piggyback his own system off the back of the grow watt. So he wants it to talk to each other. So he wants 2 different systems to talk to each other. So he wanted to know what the grow watt was pumping out signal wise. And you know what? He got nowhere with them. And even grow watt were like, meh.
Yeah, grow off. That's exactly what we go. 48 volts to 5.5 kV systems, and then the rack mounted batteries, which are 5.5 or 6 kilowatts.
Grow Watt does not really, and you have to be really smart, because there's a real problem with Grow Watt. So when you want to go in and do the battery management system, you can't just go to your server, and it's a pain in the butt apparently to go in and get them to change the settings when you want to change it. There's actually a workaround that my friend, had to go onto the internet, and he had to find this workaround to actually get into the Grow Watt settings, because there's certain things they don't let you touch. And he's it's quite interesting. You're better off just going, if you're going to have Grow Watts, you'll piggyback them all together, but you've got to go with same sort of models. Otherwise, there's wolf sleds. They don't like each other. But this is a full 16 kilowatt system for about $3,000 you can build yourself, which would save. It will pay for itself in 2 years roughly if you're charging at night for 7p a kilowatt. Within 2 years, it's payback.
Or
that's how quick
if you're here and you have no power at all for most of the day, it soon pays for itself.
Oh, that reminds me of that Elton John song, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Hang on a minute. Hang on. There's one in the wind. There it goes. Yeah.
Let me see if I can find something for Ian just to whet his appetite.
A muzzle.
For Ian to whet his appetite? Well, no.
He could print his own.
It's got to have he's print his own, exactly. It's got to have USB on it. That's all it is. We sort of see it blowing up.
It has to have had USB on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we have definitely dropped into nonsense, and I have just reminded myself with that candle that I won't have much power left on our 1600 candle. The price of candles has gone through the roof in the last 6 months. So I wish I bought 1600 candles like in January, and or as the thing 3-4 candles. I wish I bought lots and lots of candles, because they're flipping expensive, and unfortunately,
well, the price waxes and wanes, doesn't it?
It waxes and wanes. Very good. But the other thing is, because lots more paraffin's being used in homes, there's been a huge increase in house fires with people knocking over the paraffin lamps and things. So it's a complete cluster. If you're planning on coming on holiday to South Africa in the next year, bring a suitcase of your own electricity. You will need it.
Whale oil is carbon neutral. It's not like paraffin.
No, we gave up the whaling years ago, and in fact, funnily enough, the whale migration is on now, and it's not going very well due to shipping and blasting and all sorts of things like that. But yeah, that is on. Why is there two things popping up in here? What does this mean?
Oh, I just sent something to Ian, and that just popped up.
Oh,
talking amongst themselves.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I sent Ian something. So yeah.
Yes, SPH other brands, 1650 livid. Yeah, you better you pick the rack, or you pick the rack. Yeah. But the amazing, I can buy the rack in the village. I can drive 15 k's into the village and buy all this gear, which I find extraordinary, and it's got to a reasonable price now. But it's just amazing. Just amazing. Anyway, what else have we seen in the drone world before we go? Because we are definitely in Ranto mode. Nothing, model aircraft world, nothing. I see Hobby Kings. Just because last week I looked at the flipping Hobby King website while we were streaming, Hobby King stuff's popping up all the time now for me, including some F-16s or something that they've got. I can't.
Someone sent me an email of a what is it, a P-38 crashing into somebody, model P-38 crashing into somebody. Very impressive. I got to do a video on that. Fortunately, I think it was a foam one, but it still looked pretty nasty. So yeah, it's only a matter of time.
And of course, that Airbus, that was pretty amazing. That Airbus that took the bit of the Have they said it's a bit of the wheel? Is it proved it's?
It looks like it looks like the tire burst and blew out. Because I always wondered, when you've got at sea level, you've got to have enough air pressure to hold the plane up when it lands. When you get up to 30,000 feet, that's quite a stress on those tires. They must grow quite a bit. Must be a lot of spare space in the wheel well. I guess sometimes they have flaws and they go pop.
Oh, I know Louis get a 5 megawatt wind turbine. Yeah, that's him. That's the Louis all over. Yeah.
And Louis will come and inspect it.
It's all about size with it. Oh, no, for free though. You said he'll do it for free. I mean, you can't say that, can you? Thanks, you generous fella.
Can you come and inspect our tower, Louis? Because it needs inspecting, apparently.
Yeah.
Bruce, you need to get someone with a DJI drone to actually fly it, do like a visual inspection, and then just post it for the council. Send them the video dash of it being.
Why does it have to be DJI? Why does it have to be
DJI?
Sorry, just freestyle through it. I'll just go through the rungs and through the glass.
No worries. Like a nice flight up, and through the inside, showing its condition for them.
Oh, what a load of nonsense. We are talking nonsense. Yeah. So, in that case, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, wherever you are in the world, thank you very much for being with us. See you again next week. Who knows if we'll have power or not? I really don't know. Look after yourselves wherever you are in the world. It's 2100 GMT next week. GMT, I have to get that wrong. So not cool, am I? And if you're at Farnborough week after next, I might even buy you a bit. So see you then. Take care, everybody. Look after yourselves. Bye-bye.